From the land of the midnight sun, where grit meets pure glamour, we are the Midnight Sun Sisters. Kaylee Perot with Midnight Sun Sisters podcast, and I'm here with Sara Williams, the founder and CEO of Sacred Seeds Foundation. They advocate for hemp in the hemp industry, as well as food sovereignty and plant-based healthcare. And so, Sara, I am so glad that you are here. It's been in the making for about a month.
Yes.
And and so I want to start with the essential questions that most Alaskans and even tourists ask, like, how did you get to Alaska?
Sure.
And when?
So I came to Alaska in 2009. I lived in Oregon, and at the time I was fresh off of a divorce, and there was a man that I'd known since college, and he was stationed here in Elmendorf Air Force Base, and he swore he couldn't live without me, so he convinced me to pack up everything from Oregon, and I drove the Alcan and got up here May 21st of 2009. And shortly thereafter, I learned that we could live without each other, but I chose to stay in Alaska because opportunity was greater here in Alaska than it was in Oregon at the time. There was really no economy. The economy had a major failure in Oregon, and so it was better and easier to find jobs up here in Alaska, and so I stayed. And that's how I got to Alaska. It was a kind of a calling thing. Like, I didn't really, I came with the intent that I was going to be leaving shortly because the gentleman that I was dating was going to be PCSing to Texas. And so I thought, gosh, I'll just enjoy Alaska for the summer, and then by fall I'll be moving. But that didn't work out. So I stayed and I fell in love.
That's wonderful. I mean, Alaska has a way of just drawing people in and just keeping them here.
Yeah, for sure.
And the ones that move out, somehow they come back too. So,
right.
So it's just...
I very much believe that Alaska has a calling, that there are people that are called to Alaska for purposes that they don't even know about at the time that they're called.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you are here. So, were you from a small town or a city?
Yeah, so I was from, I guess you could, not really a small town. So Springfield, Oregon is just over the bridge from Eugene, Oregon. So University of Oregon is in Eugene. And so, maybe 140,000 people at the time. So not a ton, not as big as Anchorage, but big enough that it wasn't, it wasn't small, but it was kind of mid-sized, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds, now did you go to college in Eugene?
I did. So I graduated in 1998, and I went off to Western Oregon University. I originally was told by somebody that if you wanted to be a lawyer, that you needed to get a political science degree somewhere along the line. Somebody told me that, and I wanted to be a lawyer because when my father and I would fight when I was 14, he screamed at me and he said a number of curse words, but he said, "You should be a lawyer." And I said, "Why would you?" I don't know. I said some other things back, I'm sure. But I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you just made me feel bad for something that you did." And I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "No, you made me feel bad for something you did." I was like, "Is that what lawyers do?" Like, whatever. It was a strange conversation, but somehow it like marked me. So at 14, I was like, I guess I'm going to be a lawyer. And I found that, that I kind of walked through this season at young age that, when I was in high school in civics course, my teacher at the time came in. He started day one. He said, "Nobody gets an A in my class." And I was like, challenge accepted. Let's go, right? I didn't even know if I liked governmental things or civic things, but why not? So lo and behold, I got an A in his class, and I found out that I like governmental things. Absolutely. And so when I went off to college, I started a degree in political science. And I very quickly, by fall, that first freshman year, I was elected as a student senator. And then I was heavily involved in the Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity. In fact, I started the pre-law club and we moved it to the Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity during my time there. And then I was elected Senate president my junior year. And so I learned, politics just kind of was something that I was really interested in. But ironically, on my graduation day, I very distinctly remember looking at the person walking next to me, and it was Western Oregon. I think our graduating class for political science degrees was like 7 people. Okay,
wow.
so it was not wasn't a big class. But I remember looking at her, and at the time, it was 2002, so Bill Clinton was president. And I remember looking at her and saying, I want nothing to do with politics ever again in my life. I was so disenchanted with politics at that time. And I walked away from everything to do with politics. I started working for Washington Mutual Bank and went down the financial services route and did that for a while. And 13 years later, when cannabis became legal here in Alaska, I was one of 2 people who put my name in to chair the Marijuana Advisory Committee for the Mat-Su Borough. And I got it. And so 13 years post the time I said I was done with politics, I was back in politics. So there's a calling somewhere that I just didn't want to admit to back then, I guess, for sure.
Well, it's a good start to where we're going with the hemp.
Yeah.
So when did hemp start to become an interest for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a difference between cannabis and hemp, and you got involved with the cannabis industry
Sure.
for a time.
Yeah.
Can you share how the divide there
How
between
did hemp come to be and how did it get the divide? So I'm going to point to this nifty little thing right here. We created this to show the difference between hemp and cannabis. And so I have to talk about the cannabis side before I can talk about the hemp side. So I'm a survivor of a high school shooting and a number of years of trauma of childhood abuse. And as a part of that, and that's a whole different discussion for another time, but as a part of that, that produced within me all sorts of issues, okay? Depression, anxiety, things that people could label all sorts of things, but they were issues. They were issues based on unhealed trauma. And for many years of my life, I took Prozac and I took other pharmaceutical drugs, and nothing ever fixed me. It always just numbed me out and emptied me out. And so I would get to the point where I would get so sick of being numbed out all the time that I would just stop taking the thing, and we'd still have the same problem that caused, me to take it in the first place, right? Because there was no real healing. And so, fast forward in my life in 2014, my husband at the time was heavily involved in understanding cannabis as medicine. And he introduced me to it. And so at 36 years old, here I was consuming, or 34 at the time, consuming my first, cannabis product. And I was amazed because I was like, wow, I feel normal. I like this. I feel joyful and I feel courageous and I feel all the things that I wish that pharmaceutical drug had given me. But it's over here when I'm smoking a plant. That's crazy. And so it was this wide open awakening for me. And I became this medical advocate. Wow, you can really use this plant as a medicine, right? And I understand there's an endocannabinoid system and people can consume this plant. It'll help them with their issues. But fast forward, I was in a car accident in 2016 and I began to use cannabis as medicine for covering pain. And I would 100% attribute my cannabis use to my spiritual awakening, because there became a removing of the veil for me in seeing things that I had never seen before. And some may call that hallucinatory, whatever, psychosis, you can call whatever it was. It was an awakening to a presence of things much bigger than me, and me walking a path that I had no understanding about. And so the spiritual aspect of my cannabis journey is, again, probably we could spend a whole hour on that alone. But but I was an advocate for cannabis, and we wanted to open a retail store when cannabis went legal in Alaska in 2014. And so we kind of walked that out and started down that process. But when I began to use it for pain, I became addicted in a way that I never understood. I didn't think I had addictions. I didn't think I was an addictive personality. I didn't think that that was me. I had never smoked cigarettes before. Drinking was no issue for me. But cannabis became an issue. And so it absolutely took over my life and ruled my life. And it became a mindset that I had. I need my medicine. And if I don't have my medicine, then I can't survive. I can't live. So in the midst of all of that, that's where the Lord found me. I had left my husband. I was homeless. I was prostituting. I was broken. I mean, beyond broken. And in the middle of all of that, the Lord met me in a parking lot. A friend that I had known for a while, she prayed for me. And just in that moment of salvation, I said, I clearly don't know what I'm doing with my life. So here you go. Like, good luck. Take it from me, please, because I don't know what I'm doing. The fruit I'm bearing is really bad. So could you do better? And so I gave the Lord my heart in June 14th of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And, just the lowest of the low of where I was at. And in that process, though, as he began to work on me and began to renew my mind and began to change who I was and transform me into something different, he gave me this idea of hemp pays for healthcare. This idea that the hemp industry, which is this wonderful cousin to cannabis, but it can produce 50,000 different products, it could pay for a healthcare industry. And why is it that America has such a horrible healthcare industry? Because through my journey, I'm going to every doctor and I'm saying, please help me with this. Please see what cannabis does to my body. Please watch this. And there was no answers. There was no help. They were so limited with what they could do to be able to help me. It was just a constant feeling like I was not being seen and I was not being heard.
Sure.
And that's the nature of our healthcare industry as it is anyway, because that's the way it's built. So the Lord gave me the idea of hemp pays for healthcare, and that was 2018, July of 2018, when he gave me the idea. But it became kind of like, okay, I'm going to build it a little bit. I'm going to build it. Oh, but meanwhile, I've got to get a job and I've got to get healed. And so I've got to get my own place and I've got to get on my feet. And my dad died and I had to move in with my mom. And it became just this movement. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I got to work on this. This is something that I need to move forward. And originally in the beginning, the idea was that if hemp pays for healthcare, well, then maybe we put a tax on the hemp industry. And the tax then pays for healthcare, because you can't put another tax on the people. The people can't even, handle what they've got now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand that other countries can pay for healthcare, but that's because they tax the living bejesus out of other people, right? And so there's no such thing as free anything. The free healthcare, free education, it comes from somewhere. And so as I grew in my journey, I was like, well, first of all, I got to get a hemp economy going. Like, hemp is legal now in Alaska. That was as of the 2018 Farm Bill. And then thanks to, at the time, Senator Shelley Hughes, she sponsored SB6 with legalized hemp in Alaska. So I was like, yay, that's great, right? And that was in April of 2018. But by the time they got around to the regulations, they released them in July of 2020, smack dab in the middle of a scamdemic. I mean, a pandemic. And so it was impossible. It wasn't impossible, but it was not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am. I put out hempforhealthcare.com, and it's just me, and I'm out there telling everybody about hemp. I'm calling all these Alaskan grown farmers and I'm saying, hey, would you guys grow hemp? This is my great idea. They're like, yes, a really great idea. We love the idea. However, what are we going to do with it once we grow it?
Sure.
Like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's the bottleneck in all of Alaska at this moment, is manufacturing. Like, we can produce only to a degree because we have no manufacturing facilities to take it from its raw form into something that we might buy off of Amazon. right?
Sure.
So that's our problem. And so then the Lord had me kind of say, you know what, that's not the right time for now. So we moved into food security, and I worked for a while for Bush's Bunches, and I
Oh, okay.
helped them. I did some food security symposiums for them and helped them be the first Alaskan grown grocery store. They started as they were a seasonal farmers market. When I came on board, I said, you guys need to stay open year round, and I will find all the Alaskan grown
That is
and made
so
food products
awesome.
to keep you open. We'll just find the right people. We'll start with breakfast. Okay, we need eggs, we need milk, and we need bread. Let's go there. And so I go out and I find the right people for that. We put it together, and then we lunch and dinner and meats, and so it was not easy. They already had a staff, and when I came on, I was only supposed to be temporary. So about December of that year, that was 2022, I said, okay, guys, like, you have just enough money to pay your current staff.
Mhm.
I'm extra. So I'm going to step out. And I went to go work for Walgreens as their assistant manager for years, for 3 years at that point. And got my pharmacy technician license. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. But
Oh,
the Lord
yeah.
flat out told me, said, how can you take down your enemy if you don't know anything about them? I said, okay, I get it. I get it. So I
Wow.
stepped in and I cried in the beginning, but I kept going and learned quite a bit about the inefficiency of pharmacies and the inefficiency of pharmacy techs. And they're handicapped by the inefficiency of the industry anyway. So it was a lot to learn there. And then, and then, as the Lord would have it, I now work for the State of Alaska Division of Public Assistance. And so 7 years from the time that I was a recipient of public assistance and needing food stamps for me and my son, and going through that process, I now help people in crisis, and it's a good thing. God is good.
Yes, I lo
Yeah.
I love your testimony. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
sharing this, and it's interesting how cannabis was such a part of your testimony,
Yes.
and now you're turning it around for a good, or God is.
Sure, God is.
And I
Absolutely.
love
Yeah.
that this is a faith-based organization.
Yes.
Sacred
Seeds. Yep.
Seeds. Oh my gosh.
That's right. I know. It's good. Yep. Sacred seeds. Yep. And it is faith-based, because we believe that healing does not happen if you don't heal the spirit. So you can have a healing of the body, but it's superficial. You can have a healing of the mind, that, because maybe you work through a thing, or maybe you said, I forgive somebody or whatever, but the power of the Holy Spirit to come and heal things that happened in your childhood, to heal things that nobody else knows about.
Mhm.
There's a spot in my journey where it was just me. It was right after I'd had my full hysterectomy, and it was just me all alone in a dry cabin by myself. And to be so able to feel the arms of the Holy Spirit wrap around you when you're all alone
Mm.
is a blessing that I want everybody to have, because there are people out there in the world that are so very broken, and they're so deep in their darkness and their unhealed spaces, and they don't have a relationship with Jesus. They don't know Jesus. They've never heard of Jesus. They maybe have heard, but he's not real, or they have heard, and maybe they think they know the Lord, but they don't know him at that deeper level of intimacy. And so, so deliverance ministry is real. Like, deliverance demons are real. And you cannot have a healthcare system be effective if you do not touch the spirit, if you do not give reverence to the spirit and
I
say, look,
agree.
your spirit is shattered. Here's where it's shattered when you were this age with this issue, and we need to deal with that, right?
Mhm.
But if you don't have a foundation in Christ, if you don't have a foundation in Jesus, your foundation is shaky sand,
Mhm.
and it's not going to last the next time you run up against a battle for that. So part of Sacred Seeds Foundation, of course, the goal is to fund with the money that we raise and the money that we earn through our manufacturing facilities, is to pay for Living Waters wellness centers. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the
Yeah.
4 phase.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I want to touch on when Sacred Seeds started. And it had to take a little bit of a team. I know you've got a
Sure.
team of what I believe was 4 or 5. Is that
At the
correct?
moment, we're just at 3 now.
3 now. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds good. Like, how did you find these like-minded people that believed in hemp the way that you do? Because
Sure.
I love the enthusiasm and the passion in which you talk about hemp.
Yeah.
Like, how did you find these people
Right. So
that agreed with you in the way that you?
So then, there was the food security thing for a while, and then the Lord put on my heart. I mean, I met people along the way and, just built my general friend base. And the Lord put on my heart that if I didn't step out now for hemp for healthcare, for the next step for moving the hemp industry forward, that he was going to choose someone else. And that was a terrifying moment of oh, I'm not losing my calling. No, I'm going to take a step. And so I just put out on Facebook and was like, hey, friends, I'm going to have this meeting and I'm going to talk about this hemp economy. And if you're interested in building hemp economy for Alaska, then, come to this meeting. And I think there was 5 of us at the initial meeting, and then there was a couple others that came to the second one. And initially, when Sacred Seeds was founded, there were 6 total of us that started it. As life would go on, when you're walking out a calling with the Lord, if you're not crazy committed, like fanatically committed, the enemy will come along and give you distractions, right?
Yep.
And that's and at the same time, like if you're saying yes to a someone else's calling because you want to help them out, but you don't necessarily think you should be saying yes, like don't do that, because it's a commitment for these kinds of things. And so we started out with a larger team, but then we recently had a pruning, and it's very good because as we started with the larger team, we realized, that others needed to go some different ways, and that was wonderful. As we tightened the team to our executive core team, we just people, just my ladies, we're the hemp ladies, okay? And my ladies, Lindsay and Jennifer, we just have faith. We see God moving, like take the next step, and he does a thing. And we're like, oh God, that's so amazing. And we take the next step and take the next step. And so there's a saying that says you can't drive across country at night knowing everywhere you're going to go, right? You have no idea. All you need to see is the next 200 feet where your headlights can reach.
Sure.
And so the vision that I had in September when we first had our first meeting is not where we're at right now. It's better. Like where we're at right now is significantly better, but we've taken steps and we've seen movement. We've seen HB 325. We've seen legislative action take place because we took an action to contact a legislator who had the same alignment of thoughts that we did. We've seen movement in just putting it out there and people going, oh yeah, I like that idea and I want to be a part of that. We found our contractor who is now becoming the leading building with hemp expert in the industry.
That's awesome.
We just have people that are stepping out in faith, whether they fully believe in Jesus or not. They're like, no, now's the time for hemp in Alaska. And so we recognize like we are a faith-based organization, but we do not tell you that to work with us or whatever, you have to believe in Jesus, right? We're like, we're going to go ahead and believe in Jesus. We're going to do our part, our worship, our praise. And we're going to do something for the kingdom of God, for Alaska in the name of Jesus. You can support it or not. That's cool. Like we're not offended if you don't.
Sure.
But we're very much faith-filled in as we pray and we take a next step. We've had amazing support from Todd Bajettis with Alaska Farm Supply. So he's come alongside with us. The Alaska Farm Bureau came alongside with us and said, hey, we need a hemp program. So we developed the Alaska Farm Bureau Hemp Commodities Program. So I chair that as well.
Wow.
And so we've done a lot in the last, 9 months of going, okay, from here in a coffee shop, we're had this conversation to we're going to step it out and keep moving and keep moving. And some people have said, oh, you're moving too fast. And I'm like, oh, I'm moving at the speed of the Holy Spirit. Like, I can't get ahead of him. I can't get behind him. I got to go, in alignment, but I also can't miss the opportunity.
Yes.
And so we jumped ahead thinking that, oh my gosh, we'd put seeds in the ground this year and it'd be great. But then when you get out there and you realize, man, like it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to build infrastructure in Alaska. And this is all brand new. And so it's been a journey it's been a journey of faith, and it will be until the end of it, which is my life, the end of my life, because this is a lifetime calling.
That is so awesome. Can you tell us a bit about like the difference between hemp and cannabis as far as like, okay, cannabis, it's the flower, correct?
Sure.
And then hemp is the stem, or is it the leaves?
Yeah. So I'll tell you about it. So cannabis, as we kind of know here currently in Alaska, we have a legal marijuana industry. So cannabis is your high THC. So this THC is your delta-9 tetrahydrocannabidiol. Okay, that's the chemical. That's chemical that gets people high. It's the psychoactive chemical. And really the cannabis industry is really grown for that flower derivative, right? Coming from that flower plant. They do all sorts of different things with it. Maybe they extract it in some way. Maybe people just smoke the flower. There's a number of different ways that you can consume it. Lotions and body products and things like that. But it's predominantly a one-trick pony in that sense. Like you don't really grow cannabis to do anything else with it except to produce a high THC product. This is the difference that hemp has. So if you looked at the difference of the plant, the hemp plant is grown, it's taller, it is grown predominantly for that fiber that comes from that stalk. So I'll do a nifty little thing here. So this is the fiber that comes on the outside of that stalk. This fiber is something that can make clothing, it can make rope and fishing nets, it can make canvas. In Murray, Kentucky makes hemp wood out of it. So they compress it and they make hemp wood out of it, which can be used for flooring and for paneling and for doors and desks and cabinets and things of that nature. And so this is the fiber outside. And then when you degum that, you have the degum portion. And then this is where you have something that can be clothing, right? Or pillows or bedding or other textiles that we can make right here. And so then you have the inner core or the inner herd of that stalk, which is this herd that can be used for animal bedding. This can actually be used for bioplastics and biodegradable plastics as well.
Okay.
This can also be used for batteries. Graphene, it can be made into hemp energy batteries. And this can also be made for hempcrete. So hempcrete, you mix this with lime and a little bit of wood ash or something of that nature, and then water, and it will solidify into a building material that you can make and you can use for building as an insulator. So what's super cool about hempcrete and why it's a superior building product to what we have currently on the market is it's fire resistant. So up to 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 hours, this thing will sit there. Hempcrete will sit there. Now, not this in its spot, but hempcrete, when it's mixed with the lime, will sit there and just solidify. It will just petrify under the heat. It will not burn. And so, but also it's flood resistant. So when you have a flood like the villages did in Western Alaska this past February, hempcrete will just sit there and dry out. Meanwhile, sheetrock and drywall will crumble and fall apart. Right. So building with hemp is a much better it's just overall a better product. Additionally, though, hemp is a carbon sequestration. Not only is it a carbon sequestration for the plant, but also the herd itself will continue to sequester odors and carbon from the house, which cleans the air and keeps it, overall clean. But the plant itself per acre 1 acre of hemp can sequester 10 tons of carbon per year. So or per season, basically. So I don't know if there's this big push, whether you agree with this climate change concept or not, it is a thing that they're globally pushing. And so carbon sequestration and this requirement of carbon sequestration is what they're doing for like the clean coal plant that they've agreed to build here in the Matsu.
Okay.
And so in order to sequester the 80 tons of carbon that they believe it produces per year, they have to dig a hole in the ground and put a pipe, and they pump basically hot air and carbon into the ground. That's how they sequester carbon. Now, I don't know about you, but that just doesn't seem wise. Number one, it's not tested. We don't know how the earth is going to respond to that.
Yeah, no kidding.
But number two, if we could just grow 1 acre of hemp and sequester 10 tons, let's just grow acres and acres of hemp and sequester more carbon that way. It's an idea.
Yeah, that's a
just a and then finally we have this fiber. This is a fiber insulation product, so it would replace your fiberglass. You can put it on your hands. You're not going to hurt yourself. If you accidentally inhaled it, you are in no way going to harm yourself. This is the future that we're trying to build, which is a future of non-toxic building materials. And so hemp overall produces building materials. It produces clothing. What do we have here? We have fishing nets, paper and packaging. Hemp paper is a very real thing. The history of hemp for our country, this is Independence Day weekend, right? 250 years of our wonderful country being alive and moving forward. We went over and saw Young Washington on Friday. And it's this great story about the early years of George Washington. And George Washington grew hemp, and he said, sow hemp everywhere, because he saw how incredibly good it is for all the uses that you can do with it, right?
For sure.
And so
this is awesome.
The bioplastics is really, really amazing. And of course, finally, I didn't bring any seeds with me, but hemp seeds, when you de-hull them, you take off the hard outer shell, then you have a food product. And you can ground that food product down into flour. You can press out the oil, and you have a cold pressed oil that you can cook with and eat things with. There are so many. In fact, I've seen ice cream made out of hemp hearts and hemp oils and things of that nature. So
my goodness, you can do almost everything.
Yeah, and what's amazing is it's a food product that has let's see here. It has all 9 essential amino acids that your human body needs, as well as it's really high in omega-3s and omega-6s. It's a 12 gram per 3 tablespoons protein source. It is a phenomenal nutritional food product, right?
Yeah.
So we have a food security problem here in Alaska. Hemp can help fix that problem, right? But additionally, let's go a little further. The seed, when you press out that oil can be biofuel. So when you need heating fuel for your Toyo stove, that you need to go buy diesel to do that, you can do that with hemp seed and hemp seed oil. So all of the potentials of what this plant can do with the right manufacturing capability and the right people that can see the vision, that's what we can do for Alaska. That's self-sustainability.
That is. Yeah. Hemp is where it's at. It sounds like, for sure. Yes, I love it.
Before, let me touch base real quick. So the difference between cannabis and hemp, that's the number one indicator between the two. Okay, it's that THC chemical. So a legal crop for hemp is under 0.3% THC or delta hydrocannabidiol. And then the cannabis is over that 0.3%.
Gotcha.
That's the line that people need to see for sure.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you for including that. So I want to go back to when you mentioned that Shelley Hughes had passed a bill to allow hemp production.
Yes.
So now we're at HB 325.
Yeah.
And And so when did this start coming around? Did you met with a representative?
Yeah. So I got a great testimony on this one too. So this was on Facebook. Back in, I want to say it was in October. No, it was like October 14th, stuck in my brain, October 14th. So Representative Kevin McCabe, he had shared a post about hemp. And he was the first legislator that I'd seen in a long time, like, mention hemp being something that would be great. And he had mentioned hemp in Point McKenzie. And so I was like, well, this is great. Like, if they extend the railway to Point McKenzie, then let's put our building facility. And it was kind of at the same time that we were putting together the restart of Hemp Pays for Healthcare, now called Sacred Seeds Foundation. And so simultaneously, we're like, okay, well, that's what we have to do. Like, we have to be the manufacturing. We have to produce that, because without the manufacturing, we can't go anywhere. It's just not going to happen. Like, we got farmers all day long that will grow this plant, but if they can't do anything with it, we're dead in the water. So
Sure.
we're gonna focus on that. We're gonna figure out how to produce a manufacturing facility. So we began to talk about GreenBuild Composites and building Alaska's first industrial hemp manufacturing facility and what that would look like. Well, so in this time, Representative McCabe started to express his support of hemp. And so I reached out and I said, okay, well, what about let's connect. Will you be our advocate, our champion for hemp? And so we just started the conversations. And McCabe and I had met many years ago, long before he was even elected in the first place. But,
Oh, okay.
we just started having kind of the conversation, and he's like, yep, I totally support it. I was like, okay, this is great. And so we just kind of filed that away. Well, then somewhere in, I think, November, I had a conversation with my AI agent, and I said, look at these hemp regulations and tell me what's wrong with them. And AI comes back and says, you have an agricultural industry wrapped up as a controlled substance.
Huh.
Because what they had done is they had said, well, hemp is so much like cannabis that, we're scared of it. So we have to have lots of regulations around the control of it, which farmers don't want regulations. Farmers are like, no, freedom. We want freedom to grow however we want. We don't want a ton of regulations. So especially when you're growing for like fiber insulation, you can't eat this. You could never get high off of this. This is not happening. Like, and so we needed some modernization of the regulations. And so I produced a memo and I sent it off to McCabe. And I was like, of course, knowing that January is coming and that he's going to be back going into the world of Juno, back in session, right? And so, as the Lord would have it, and now McCabe is a God-fearing man, so I wholly believe that the Holy Spirit's working in McCabe. And so, as the Lord would have it, at 6:30 Christmas morning, McCabe sends me the resolution for HB 325 and says, check this out. Let me know what you think. And it was like the best Christmas present ever.
Well, that's so cool.
Because pretty much everything that we had suggested as ways to improve upon the regulations, he 100% accepted into the resolution. And these were things like the micro grower category. So currently the regulations for Alaska say that you cannot grow hemp unless you grow a minimum of a 1/4 acre or 200 plants. That's what the regulations currently say.
Okay.
So really, anybody that's on a homestead that wants to grow 25 or 50 plants because they want animal bedding and some fiber for whatever, their ropes or whatever, they can't do that. They have to grow a minimum of 200 plants. And that just seems ridiculous to me, especially when you're really dealing with people that a state that is fiercely independent, like Alaska is, right? That wants to be able to take care of itself.
Right.
So we introduced the micro grower category and as part of that resolution. And then another piece that was really interesting was the 0.3% threshold. It's a plant. And, if you know anything about nature doesn't exactly do what you want it to do all the time. So if you were to test hot and possibly test at 0.5%, you would have to destroy your entire crop. burn it down, lose everything, and waste all that money. So why would a hemp farmer want to do that? Why would any farmer want to get involved in an industry that forces you to just destroy your entire crop if something happened that you had zero control over, right? That's
Sure.
ridiculous. And so, so this bill produced kind of a leeway. It said if you tested between 0.3% THC and 1%, that you could not sell it for flower derivatives like CBD, but you could sell it for fiber. You know, you could sell it for hurd. You could sell it for, you could dig up the roots and you can use the roots as a salve. Like you could use the seeds from it. You could use every single part of the plant, whether you use the leaves for animal feeding or whether you use them for compost. You can use every single part of the plant. It is an annual plant, so you do have to replant it every year.
Okay.
Or let the seeds fall and then they replant themselves. So we put forth this resolution, and it was a really crazy budget year, as it has been recently over the many years. In fact, I recently at the Wasilla July 4th parade, former Representative David Eastman put out these PFD dollars, and on the back of them, it indicated that in 2026, the legislature took 70% of our PFD to fund the budget, right?
Yeah.
And since 2016, when Bill Walker began to say this is okay to take the PFD, they have taken $22,020 away from every single Alaskan resident in PFD money.
Wow.
And to have that number quantified was like,
Man.
whoa, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so the budget battle began, and nothing gets through during budget battle season. Like nobody cares about the agricultural industry. Nobody cares about really any other industry except the budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they finally get the budget through, then it was like, all right, it's time to go to battle. So we began to go to battle for getting some interest in the bill, and McCabe was able to get a hearing. Lindsay and I were able to fly down to Juneau, and we brought hemp products for everybody to touch and feel and see that hemp is good for Alaska. And so that was really impactful because they were all very open to hemp. There wasn't a single person that said we don't want hemp. Everybody was very excited about hemp. But they were also very excited about seeing and feeling it. Like, oh, well, like this could be flooring, or this can be, building a house. Like they really could begin to grab the idea of what we were trying to sell. And so we got it through the House, and then it was like the last days of the session. Like it was the last week and a half of the session. And I'm like, okay, we got it through the House, like unanimous support. Great. Now we have to get it through the Senate. But there was no chance for that to get through the Senate. So what happened was McCabe had this wonderful idea that we should piggyback it on SB 208. So basically took it. So SB 208 is the agricultural land leasing. Currently, the state of Alaska only allows 4 plots of land across the entire state to be leased to agriculture for agricultural purposes.
Oh.
That's not a lot.
Wow.
That's not a lot.
My goodness, that is not a lot.
So SB 208 opens the ability for land leasing for agricultural uses at agricultural prices, not at oil and gas prices, right? Because farming cannot reap the money that oil and gas can. It just can't. And so SB 208 was passed. They piggybacked unanimously on top of that HB 325. And then the Senate passed it, concurred. Yep, it's good. It's good to go. And now it's been sitting and waiting for clerical things like periods and commas and other things before it's even transmitted to the governor. We have it on good authority that the governor is very supportive of agricultural things. He's been supportive of the hemp industry since Shelley passed that so many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So he's I very much believe he'll sign it. It's a legacy bill. I believe he'll sign it. But we're waiting. we're still in prayer. I'm still in intermittent fasting for days
Oh,
to be like,
wow.
Lord, just move on that, because we really do want a victory,
Yes, for sure.
Can the hemp industry survive without this bill? Yes, not as effectively. Are we going to be more um are we going to be more free in a way with this bill? Absolutely. And so we want to see it pass for sure. But in the end, if we don't, our next step is manufacturing. And so that's what we've been working on for the past few months, is getting the right pathway forward, because one is a $5 million ask and one is a $27 million ask.
Okay.
And that's a big difference, when you're coming into a new industry for that. So, yeah.
Yes. So I want to make mention. I actually messaged you on Facebook, the Sacred Seeds Foundation Facebook page. And I said, "Hey, I'd like to have you on my podcast." And you actually voice messaged me, and you said that you just got to Juneau. You were doing this speech testimony, I guess I should say, for hemp industry in Alaska, and it was just perfect timing.
It was. Your message was very encouraging at that time. Lindsay and I were like, "Yeah, this is great." So it was good.
Yeah. So I'm glad that this it's sitting on Dunleavy's desk.
Well, it's technically not. It's still in the legislature.
Oh,
it's
it
in
is.
the
Okay.
clerical staff of the legislature. They can't kill it at this point. At this point, it needs to just have a bunch of, I guess it's almost done with all the little edits that they needed to do for grammatical purposes. But for now, it's as soon as it gets to Dunleavy's desk, it should be a quick sign.
Okay, gotcha. It's so crazy how much a comma and periods can make such a difference.
To them, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. But can you tell us about the 4-phase plan for?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So Sacred Seeds Foundation is sowing seeds and healing nations through dedicated advocacy and support of industrial hemp, food sovereignty, and plant-based healthcare in Alaska for all Alaskans. So what does that mean? So we have this booth that we go around and we call it Opportunities with Hemp, and we do events and we bring all these different hemp products that people can touch and taste and see, because we, in the end, want to pay for healthcare. We want to pay for healing facilities, and hemp is the pathway to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a 4-phase plan, because hemp has the potential to be so many different things. If you just let your flesh kind of guide you and go, "Oh yeah, let's go develop this one and then that one and whatever," it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So what we decided was we came out with a concept of the 4-phase plan. And phase 1 is we're going to focus on housing materials. Most importantly, because Alaskans need affordable housing.
Yes.
Alaskans can have non-toxic, clean, homegrown, affordable housing in the back. Like, we make it right here. Like, that's step 1. So that's GreenBuild Composites. We are looking to locate in Houston. We're looking to locate near the railway that they're now going to extend all the way to Point Mac or Point McKenzie.
Oh, that's
so
exciting.
They have approved the money to finish Point McKenzie. So that's $34 million that they've approved to finish that. So now that Point McKenzie is going to get finished, if we locate right to that railway, then we'll put those building materials right on that railway, get them out on a boat to Alaskans' villages, right? To the rural communities. But ultimately, although this plan does have these phases, our goal is to produce not just in Houston or in these population centers, but to produce in each of these villages. So each village knows how to grow hemp, how to decorticate it, break it down, what kind of equipment they need. There's just a kind of a pathway. And so I'm currently in the middle of writing a book to show people, like, this is how you have a Sacred Seeds in your own hometown, so that the phases can be worked out in a way that doesn't get ahead of the game for that. So phase 1, housing materials, because it's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. It's easy to make hempcrete. We can also do animal bedding. We can do cat litter. We can do some of these more ancillary products, fiber nest, erosion control mat, things like that. So we really have kind of it's easy to grow hemp for fiber in
Yes.
Alaska. It's
Yes,
very
and it's
easy to
really
do that.
needed because, there's so many dog mushers
Yeah.
and they need that straw or the fiber.
Chicken bedding. I mean, all
Yeah,
sorts of things.
yeah.
So then phase 2, we're going to cover textiles and paper. So a little bit shift in the machinery that'll be needed for phase 2. So more focus on building clothing, building fabric, building paper and reams of paper. Hemp can be business cards, and it can be just your regular, just notebook paper. It can be cardboard boxes. It can be um, single-use cutlery. It can be, well, not yet on the single-use cutlery for that phase, but it can be boxes, for like packaging, or single-use packaging for the food industry or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And so again, the village-based micro industries on that as well. As we learn it, as we do it, get it into each of the villages so they can do it as well. And then phase 3 is where we're going to talk about bioplastics, biofuels, and food. And so bioplastics, these can be, you can make a hemp, and they currently make a hemp 3D printing filament. So
Wow.
if you can make a hemp 3D printing filament, you can make anything out of hemp, because you can
Sure.
3D print anything these days. And so you can also make a hemp bioplastic that is biodegradable within 90 days. And so that is beautiful as well. That goes along with replacing the dangers of the petroleum-based plastic that is totally overrun our system. And when we come back to textiles and paper, phase 2, I'd like to just mention this because it's very significantly a burden on my heart. Polyester clothing is basically just plastic. It's a petroleum-based product. It's also a hormone disruptor, and it's an endocrine disruptor. So in 1992, they did a study, and every mother out there needs to know this if they have a boy or a girl for that matter, and a boy specifically. But in 1992, they did a study, and they put polyester underwear, tight-fitting polyester underwear on men. And they checked their sperm count before, and 5 months after, they were at sperm count of 0.
Wow.
And then they took them off, and put back on some organic cotton underwear. And they were back at normal sperm counts within 5 months.
Interesting.
Okay. So that study alone, they've also done some studies putting, polyester diapers on female dogs, and it disrupts their hormone cycles and things of that nature too. So polyester and plastic is not good in any capacity for the human body. It also, in my opinion, is a national security risk, because we have, for the first time in my lifetime, and in probably the 250 years of America's existence, we have a negative birth rate. We have an infertility problem in our country. And there are a number of reasons that are leading to that. But I very much believe polyester is one of those. And so hemp and hemp textiles puts us on a place again where we can have non-toxic, clean clothing. We can have non-toxic, clean products that we consume and we use. So I had to jump back on that one. But phase 3, also biofuels. Hemp seed oil can be a biofuel that we can use to heat our homes. So recently had a conversation with someone on Facebook, and they were asking if energy costs were a problem for me building this manufacturing facility. And I said, no, not at all. And they said, well, why? Because we have this big LNG pipeline, and we have this big concern about whether or not fuel or biofuel is going to be available for people. And I said, because I'm not building my industry or my building on the traditional energy grid, because I don't trust it.
Sure.
Because it's part of the status quo that's got us the problem we have now as a planet and as a people. So you go ahead and build your gas line. We need it because the systems haven't changed at this point, but we're just building new systems, right? And then finally, hemp is food. So that hemp seed, you can open it up, and inside is the hemp heart. that hemp part, again, like we discussed earlier, can be so many different types of food products. And so Alaskans, we're one barge away from asking our families, or asking our friends for food. We're 2 barges away from looting and, destroying our from becoming a third world country. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We really are. And that's concerning, and it needs to be concerning for every person. And at 5%, we produce only 5% of our own food supply in the state of Alaska. So 95 is shipped in from some other country with whatever chemicals they sprayed on it, in whatever capacity they grew it. Like, come on, we can do so much better. But it has to go from 5% to 6%, and then 7% and 8%. We're not going to go overnight, and unless there is a massive catastrophe, and then we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
There are a tremendous amount of people in this state that have a lot of reserves of food that they have, built up over the years, but not everybody's willing to share. That's the nature of the beast. So, in the meantime, though, food sovereignty is very different than food security, because food security says I've got enough food for me and my family for 6 months. Or whatever, right?
Yep.
Food sovereignty says I know how to produce all the food my family needs and my community needs for as long as is needed, right? That's knowledge, and that's very different than I know how, and I have the ability to do so, and I have all the equipment I need to do so, and I have and I have the understanding that I don't have to do it alone, that it takes a community. Like, self-sustainability is a lie, to be truthful. It's community sustainability. And so as the technological world has disconnected us, that's kind of part of the problem, because we have to come together as a community, because Sally Joe down the street can produce your dairy cows and can produce your milk. You don't want to have cows, but you're really good at growing vegetables. Great. Like, do that. And then you work together for that. But it's never, all of American history has never been, I do everything all by myself. We have to do things as a people. And that's food sovereignty. And we gotta get away from the 5% produced only here in our state.
Yeah, that's such a small amount.
It is.
And to think, we've got the largest pumpkins.
Yes.
Yes. And how the light, the sunlight in the summer, things grow so fast.
They do for sure. And that's what I'm super excited about, because there's a hemp strain called Jurassic, and it comes out of Manitoba, Canada. And this Jurassic hemp strain is mostly going for fiber. And in Manitoba, it gets 14 feet tall. Okay. However,
that's awesome.
When Phil with the Industrial Hemp Program, he got some seeds from Cornell University, and they sent him, and he planted them, and he took pictures, sent it back. At the end of the season, they said, "What is this?" And he's like, "These are the seeds you sent." They said, No. That plant with us gets like 4 and 5 feet tall. His plant was 7 and 8 feet tall, right? Because of our long light and just Alaska, right? Yeah. And so I'm really excited that if we can get 14 feet tall in Manitoba, we could get 16, 18, 20 feet hemp trees here in Alaska. And
I believe it.
And so one of the things, the reason why this is ultimately a phased program is we do not know for sure where in Alaska we can get hemp seed consistently. Because if you can't get a plant from seed to seed, you cannot have self-sustainability, right?
Sure.
You really do have to find that place. But we have sometimes very cold falls, and sometimes it's rainy and it's wet, and sometimes, and hemp is a photoperiod plant. So it does need that 12-12 before it flowers and then turns to seed. And with those long daylight, it's who knows. So it's going to be very interesting to see as we step into by faith with this whole industry and determine where in the state can we grow for seed on that. And then we'll find it. It might be Delta Junction. It might be here in Palmer. We'll see. Ray DePriest has had success growing seed to seed here in Palmer. So it's possible.
Nice.
So I know it's possible for sure. So then where this all ends, we talked about phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 4 is how are we paying for healthcare? So the goal is to pay with the money generated from our manufacturing facilities, from our nonprofit donations, from the sale of hemp products, from the royalties of the hemp products that we produce. We're going to take that money, we're going to direct that money into the operating expenses of something we call Living Waters Wellness Centers. And Living Waters Wellness Centers they're kind of modeled after the ultimate checkup experience in Istanbul, Turkey, where you go in and you're scanned head to toe with all available state-of-the-art equipment. You're checked for heavy metals. You're checked for parasites. You're checked for gut health. You're checked for all the imbalances you could possibly have in your body. You're checked for inflammation markers, checked for everything. And then you sit down with the doctor. So the doctor really has a full picture, a holistic picture of your entire body. And so right now, the difference is that we have a sick care model, right? You go in, you explain your symptoms, you articulate your problem. And then the doctor goes, well, let's do a blood test or let's do a CT scan or whatever. And maybe you go in complaining about headaches and you've got some tumor somewhere in your body, that's actually causing that. And so it's like a pin the tail on the donkey and the patient ends up being the donkey in the end.
Yeah.
And so we believe that there's a significantly better, effective way to do it, which is you get all your data up front and then you start looking at that person as a whole person. And then you approach it with plant-based healthcare first and pharmaceuticals dead last,
That is so awesome.
Because food is medicine, plants are medicine, they're God's medicine, they've been God's medicine. How you use it matters, witchcraft is real. So be understanding that herbs are God's, that he created them. How we use them is to either glorify the Lord or take credit for yourself. And the importance is to glorify the Lord, right? That's the pathway it should be.
Yes,
for that.
definitely.
So that's the 4-phase plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you're just, I don't know, you're just kicking dust. And we figured, all right, let's create the plan. Do we know how we're going to do it? We have no clue. I'm the first to tell you, I have no idea how God is going to work in me, in my team, in my volunteers, in Alaska. But I see it over and over. He moves this go. Oh, that aligns with our situation. Okay, this is good. Oh, I see it. Oh, this is good. Next thing. Oh, I see the war. Okay, this is good. Price is going to go up. This makes us look really good. Okay, great. And so it's just one step forward, and it's a walk of faith every day.
Well, I'm so just impressed by the vision and the way that God is leading you and your team. And I can't wait to see what Dunleavy does. And I'm believing that he's going to sign it. Jesus. And And can you tell us like how we can stay updated on all things Sacred Seeds?
Yeah, for sure. So you can follow us on Sacred Seeds Foundation on Facebook, sacredseedsak.org. You can fill out the contact form there and, join. We'll soon be having a newsletter that'll be coming up. We have a new project that we're just releasing. I'm very, very excited about this. We're working with a company called Magic Minerals. Hempire is the name of the company. And Sergey Konolov, he has done hundreds of hemp builds. And so we had a recent conversation. He said, Sarah, you need your first one. You need to find your first one. You need to find a house that you can retrofit and just build it with hemp and then make it a community project and teach people how to build with hemp. And I was like, this is a brilliant idea. Yes. And so I get on my AI agent. I said, generate me an image. Let's go. And so we wrote out the post and I shared it all over. I think it was Friday afternoon. Shared it all over the Matsu Valley pages. And we have had 4 people offer their properties at this point. So step one is complete. Now it's a matter of going out and finding the money, so we do ask, we have a couple of programs on Sacred Seeds AK that you can donate to if you'd like to support. It's a ministry of its own kind, support the mission. We are a nonprofit. At this point, we're not yet a federal nonprofit, but by year end, we're believing for that. So you can support the Adopt an Acre program, which helps us help farmers get seeds and help them get their registered with the program. The Industrial Hemp program, help them get their business license and all the things going. You can support the Alaska's First Hemp House project. And so that's going to be, we got to make sure all the regulations and all the permitting is in place. And we have the contractor. He's ready. He's our project manager for GreenBuild Composites.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So yeah, it's all coming together. So you can visit us on sacredseedsak.org. You can certainly go to our contact form there and send us a message. Certainly love a donation if you're willing to give. You'll see us. We have events. We have a Seeds of Change barbecue coming up on August 1st at this moment.
Okay.
August 1st. The location is yet to be announced. We were going to do it at Wonderland Park, but Alaska Farm Supply has said maybe he's gonna pitch for another really cool place. So we'll see. We'll see. So stay tuned to Sacred Seeds AK for that one too. And yeah, Facebook is really our only social media at this moment. I'm sure down the road we'll grow into TikTok and all the others. It just takes a lot to create content every day. I work 50-hour weeks and, on top of, during my day, it's like, here's my 15-minute break, my 1-hour lunch, and my 15-minute break, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to move it forward just a little further. And then I'm going to put something, put an hour in at night. And plus I'm a mom. And so that's, it's worth it. It's worth every single piece of it. And my team agrees the same. We're doing this because we see the potential. We do this because, God says do it. And obedience is paramount. But I just have a heart for seeing Alaska healed. As part of my healing journey, it was never a pharmaceutical that healed me. Jesus healed me and plants healed me. Getting my diet right, getting my minerals right, getting my supplementation right, that healed me. And that got me in my right mind. And so I rail against the pharmaceutical industry. I am the opposite of the pharmaceutical industry. And so I very much come, in a way, like hemp is an industry disruptor. And so it will disrupt oil. It disrupts lumber. It disrupts timber. It disrupts pharmaceuticals. It disrupts everything.
Yeah.
Petroleum. And so as an industry disruptor, I have been built to be a fighter. And so I've told my team, I'm like, if I have to die on this hill, there's no better hill than to die on this one. You know what I mean? And it's worth it every step of the way because the people deserve better. The fruit that this economy has produced, I see it every day. Working at DPA, I see it every day, seeing people in crisis and going, man, like we can do so much better, but we have to do things differently. And so the system, there's a beast system that's marching on, and we've read the end of the book. The end of the book, thankfully, says we win, but we still have a lot to go through before we get to the end of the book. And yeah, Jesus could come back tomorrow, but prophetically, we're not quite there yet. And so in the meantime, we plan like we live like he's coming back today, and we plan like he's not coming back in our lifetime. And so you just move forward realizing that he's got such a plan for humanity that doesn't involve digital slavery. It doesn't involve mimicry, and it doesn't involve like living this controlled lifestyle. So there is freedom in the spirit, but there's also a freedom that we the people have to fight for. We have to see something separate and put the root of what hemp can bring is freedom. Because if you can produce everything you need, you are not dependent on an outside industry or an outside nation to take care of you. And right now we are dependent on an outside nation whether it's another state or whether it's China, it's wherever we are dependent. And I'm not okay with that. Not okay. So we keep going.
Well, I am so excited for the things to come. Keep the faith, Sarah, and your team. I'm so excited for what God is doing with hemp in Alaska.
Yes.
And just keep fighting.
Yes, we'll do.
Yeah, and thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Kaylee,
for
so
your
much for having me.
time.
Thank you.